Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into an absolutely breathtaking 20th century technological journey, and we're looking at it all through the eyes of one remarkable woman. Her name was Wilma Jean Smith Bostrom. We are going to explore exactly how the rapid evolution of light and power fundamentally transformed a single human life.
To really wrap our heads around this leap, we have to start right at the beginning. Wilma's own journal actually paints this incredibly beautiful picture of her early life. She was born in 1922 and grew up on a farm in rural Iowa in the 1920s. And, it was a totally pastoral, pre-electric world. A world dictated entirely by the rising and setting of the sun, where entertainment was literally as simple and quiet as lying on a velvet green pasture and watching the clouds change shapes.
Just take a second to consider the sheer scope of this timeline. Born on a farm with absolutely zero electricity in 1922, reading by a kerosene lamp in the 20s, experiencing the very first sputtering gas generator on the property in the 30s, connecting to the modern electric grid in the 40s, and then all the way to navigating a modern computer microchip at 90 years old in 2012, it's just a breathtaking transition from a dark farm to the digital age, happening all within one lifetime.
Okay, let's set the stage here. Before we get into all the technology, we really have to establish the baseline reality of Wilma's early years. Life before the switch was flipped, so to speak. It was a life of intense, constant manual labor, fueled almost entirely by human and animal energy.
Every single daily chore required an immense amount of effort. I mean, every drop of drinking water had to be literally carried into the house from an outside pump. If they wanted to wash up, they used a small hand pump at the sink for soft cistern water. And then they had to heat it on a black kitchen range fueled by corn cobs they brought in from the barnyard. Wilma recalled going down into their cool, dirt floor basement to hand churn butter until her arms physically ached. And it was her specific job to walk out into the pasture to, quote, get the cows for the morning milking. So much raw human energy was required just to survive from day to day.
And when the sun finally did go down, well, they had to fight back the dark with one of these, the Aladdin mantle lamp. Now, when you hear Aladdin lamp, forget about the magical brass genie lamp from the fairy tales. No, this was a very real, very tall glass kerosene lamp. It was an absolute necessity, featuring a delicate mantle and a really tall glass chimney to protect the flame.
Wilma actually wrote about this delicate analog lighting in her journal. She noted, "We read and studied by the light of an Aladdin lamp. I remember how fragile the wick was and how it sounded." Isn't that a vivid memory? Just imagine having to carefully manage a fragile, burning wick and combustible kerosene right there on the table just to do your homework or read a book in the evening.
But then came the first massive technological shift for the family, the Delco light plant. Invented by Charles F. Kettering, this was an incredibly ingenious, decentralized power supply system. It was intended specifically for rural farms that were completely cut off from city power. The whole setup consisted of a gas-powered engine, a generator, and a bank of batteries.
Now, the sheer mechanical complexity of what they were bringing into their homes was staggering. This definitely wasn't just a machine you unpack and plug into a wall. It featured an air-cooled, single-cylinder 1.5 horsepower engine, and it required a massive two-tier wooden shelf just to hold the battery banks. And get a load of this number, 16. That is exactly how many large, heavy, open, clear glass jars containing lead-acid batteries the farmer had to maintain on that shelf. 16 of them. Now, each of those batteries gave off just 1 to 2 volts. So all 16 of these individual glass batteries had to be carefully wired together in a series just to provide a very modest 32 volts of direct current to the farmhouse. And that was just barely enough to run a few 50-watt light bulbs and, if they were lucky, maybe a water pump. But, for Wilma, it wasn't about the volts or the amps or the wiring. It was a deeply ingrained sensory experience. Connecting right back to that complex engineering, she wrote, "I can shut my eyes, drift back in time, and actually hear that Delco put-put-put. When it would run down, the lights would go dim, and Daddy had to charge the battery. You can practically feel that fading yellow light in the room as the engine struggled to keep up with the demand." The funny thing is, the company actually marketed this as an automated, low-maintenance system. Yeah, right. Let's contrast those marketing claims with the gritty reality. Her father had to regularly haul heavy fuel just to refill a 20-liter petrol tank. He had to continuously monitor the engine oil levels and, perhaps most dauntingly,
He had to check and maintain highly corrosive acid levels across all 16 of those open-glass batteries. So it gave them power, for sure, but it was still entirely reliant on some pretty grueling manual labor to keep the lights on.
So as revolutionary as that localized Delco plant was, it was really just a stepping stone. Consider the massive leap from a decentralized, high-maintenance 32-volt DC system sitting out in the barn to the arrival of the REA grid. This was a centralized, automatic, highly reliable national infrastructure that provided standard alternating current directly to the wall. This macro shift was driven by the Rural Electrification Act of 1936. And to put that into perspective, look at this staggering investment. $210 million. That is what the government invested over just 2 years to lay 160,000 kilometers of power lines across the country. That massive push finally brought reliable electricity to 220,000 American farms, including Wilma's.
For Wilma and her family, all that massive national infrastructure boiled down to one profound, absolutely life-changing truth. She simply wrote, "Still later, we hooked up to Rural Electrification Association, and from then on, we had good electric lights." That was it. No more fragile wicks to trim, no more put-put-put of a loud gas generator, no more dimming lights, just permanent, good electric light at the flip of a switch.
So, if we look back, this represents an incredible 3-stage leap in a remarkably short period of time. Going from managing literal manual fire with the Aladdin lamp to localized mechanical generation with the Delco batteries, all the way to the invisible, permanent reliability of a national power grid, it's like witnessing centuries of human progress packed into just 2 decades. But, this whole story, it isn't just about the technology itself. It's really about the human capacity to adapt. Looking at Wilma's life overall, she was a woman deeply devoted to her family, her faith, her community, and her garden. And yet, she didn't get left behind by the rapid modernization of the 20th century. No way, she embraced it. She adapted beautifully as science completely revolutionized the way she lived.
Which brings us to the absolute pinnacle of her journey. The woman who started her life carefully preserving a delicate kerosene wick on a farm with a dirt floor basement eventually learned to confidently navigate the digital world, typing away on a modern computer at the age of 90. I mean, the leap from a glass chimney to a silicon microchip is just awe-inspiring.
So, here's a fascinating thought to leave you with as we wrap up this explainer. If Wilma's 99 years of life took her all the way from the fragile flame of an Aladdin lamp to the vast, interconnected world of a microchip, what unbelievable technological leaps will the next 90 years bring for us? Thank you so much for joining me as we explored this incredible life. Keep learning, keep wondering, and I'll catch you next time.